Good morning, happy Sunday, and welcome back to Dentro La Storia's mailbag. This is a rather special mailbag for me because today, April 19th, is my birthday. Nope. Good morning. Yes, now please don't flood my inbox with birthday messages, otherwise we'll never finish. And the next episode will have to be dedicated only to reading your birthday wishes. Pretend I've already received them. That's perfectly fine. Instead, let's talk about our topics. Let's talk about what you've written to me over the past month since the last episode of Dentro La Storia's mailbag. So let's start with one of our regulars. A beloved follower, Franco, who always writes to us and follows us closely, has sent in a question that's simple, but at the same time, tricky. Who was Bruno Contrada really, and what secrets did he take with him? Franco, you've asked a question about a figure who passed away very recently, just a few weeks ago, and who played a significant role in a part of our republic's history. Bruno Contrada, also known as Uduturi. Within the Palermo prosecutor's office in the 70s and 80s, he was a controversial and much discussed figure who went through a long legal ordeal. And, as we know well, he brought to light something very murky within that period, the period of the Second Mafia War. But we will talk about it in much more detail in a video we are preparing specifically about Bruno Contrada, which will be released in a few days. So I don't want to give too many spoilers. I can only say this. Within the Palermo prosecutor's office, in the 1980s, there was the figure known as the Corvo. We talked about it some time ago in the video dedicated to Giovanni Falcone's enemies. So, besides the Corvo, the anonymous letters, and the season of denunciations, there was also a suspicion within the Palermo public prosecutor's office, the suspicion of a mole. And we're not talking about a little zoo, we're talking about grim, shadowy figures.
Chi ovviamente spargeva veleno.
And who was leaking to the outside the information that reached the prosecutor's office? And not only that, but also the Carabinieri command, the police headquarters, the prefecture. And who were they leaking it to? To the mafia. The killing of some collaborators of the public prosecutor's office, Nini Casara Montana, and many others, has always been attributed to the work of this mole. And for a long time, this mole was believed to be Bruno Contrada. But as I was saying, we'll talk about it in more detail in the dedicated video we're preparing, which will be released soon. Anyway, Franco, I thank you because you always ask precise questions, and with perfect timing too. And most of the time you pick exactly the best moment to ask certain things, to ask questions about something that's really relevant in our present time, but that still has a historical connection. Let's move on to Alberto, who writes to me, "Forgive me if I address you informally. You don't have to apologize. That's perfectly fine. You're like a friendly, everyday presence to me, so there's nothing disrespectful about it. Don't worry, it's not a problem. Anyone who has met me in person knows that I only use the formal address with certain people who have a specific role. When talking about cultural matters face to face, using the informal address is perfectly fine. I would like to ask if you could talk about the South American military dictatorships in the context of Operation Condor, and maybe suggest some titles. Congratulations on your work." So, Alberto, we've already touched on Operation Condor to some extent because we talked about Pinochet. We talked about Juan Domingo Perón, about what happened after him, and we talked about the Brujo, Lopez Rega. These aren't the only phases of Operation Condor. There are others as well if we want. And it's not out of the question that we'll cover them in the near future. What I can say in advance is that Operation Condor, this operation launched by the United States in the name of the Monroe Doctrine, to basically subjugate South America to its own will. It had such a long-lasting impact that it only faded in the early 2000s. That is, when the last republics in South America broke away from monetary parity with the US dollar. To you, it may seem like madness or something trivial, simply depending on your perception. However, tying the national currency to a fixed exchange rate with the US dollar made that currency, and especially the related economy, directly dependent on the wishes of Washington. Because when a currency is extremely weak, like the currencies of South America, it is tied to a very strong currency, dominant in the market, and still decisive for the international market. It means that it blindly accepts all trade agreements, and to pay a certain price for specific supplies and to apply certain prices for exports. However, this also translates not only into actual economic enslavement, but it's a huge risk. Because the moment you detach the national currency from the leading currency, the first effect is a dramatic backlash, a very heavy blow that sinks the national economy. Trying to recover, this shows how the unhealthy relationship between some South American currencies and the United States existed within Operation Condor. It was much more than a political choice. It was something almost comparable to slavery, contrary to what the United States says about being the land of the free. But we will talk about it in depth in a video that we will make soon. Anyway, thanks again, Alberto. As I said, you don't have to apologize, and actually keep following. Then Edy writes to me. Obviously, I can't give out the email address, from Portoroz, that is in Slovenia. I just wanted to compliment you for all the videos you make and upload to your channel. Being Slovenian, I live near Portoroz, a city not far from Trieste. I know it. I know Portoroz. I have to say that I really appreciate your point of view when you talk about topics related to the post-war period in the areas of Istria and Trieste. I don't know, maybe it's a topic you've already covered. Maybe there are many important ones. But I wanted to suggest a video about the figure of Subcomandante Marcos and the Zapatistas of Chiapas. Then it's up to you to decide if you find it interesting or not. Anyway, once again, my compliments for the wonderful videos you are making. Keep it up. So, Edy, thank you for the compliments. You give me 2 ideas. So, regarding Subcomandante Marcos and the guerrilla movement in Chiapas, no, we've never talked about it. But it's a topic that can be addressed. I'll have to do some research on it. I've already read something, but it's not enough. I need to look into it a bit more. So I can't tell you exactly when, but we'll definitely make a video about it in the next few months. I can guarantee you that. As for the other thing you wrote to me, that you appreciate our point of view, when we talk about topics related to the eastern border, it's not just a point of view, it's a methodological approach. I've already said it before, when we talk about the eastern border, what's the risk? Falling into rhetoric, or even worse, political propaganda. On one side, there's a tendency to exaggerate, and on the other side, a tendency to downplay. That would be the worst mistake. We try to provide historical information, a historical information service that is complete and comprehensive without hypocrisy. We don't cater to the political interests of one side or the other, or to the offense it may cause, because that's the other side of the coin, of one side or the other. We look at history in its entirety, and to understand history in its entirety, sometimes you have to talk about uncomfortable topics that might bother people. We know that. We take it into account. It's normal. And precisely for this reason, when talking about the eastern border, we can't just talk about what happened after 1945 while staying silent or pretending nothing had happened before. And by before, I'm not just talking about the war, and I'm not just talking about the fascist period. I'm also talking about the Habsburg era. You have to dig very deep to understand, to comprehend. Otherwise, you end up focusing only on a single isolated case or just on a single period, pretending that everything that happened before has no impact, was never important, that there was never anything truly foundational for understanding what happened afterward. And that's the worst mistake. We know very well that human history is a constant repetition of the theory that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. It's clear that as a result of certain choices, certain actions taken by human beings, others follow. The only case in which we can't fully talk about human responsibility is when we talk, for example, about natural disasters. It's hard to assign responsibility to someone for an earthquake, a tsunami, or a volcanic eruption. It's the only case in which we obviously can't talk about human action and reaction. These are forces of nature. It's a completely different matter. But when we talk about history, about human history, In the vast majority of cases, we need to understand the underlying motivations. Otherwise, what's the risk? The risk is always making mistakes in our assessments and being misled by one side or the other, by those who tell you that everything is wrong, by those who tell you that everything is right, by those who say that the blame lies only with one side, by those who deny that blame, or even say it never existed. That's the worst mistake. If you only look at a small part of history, it's clear that you'll never understand it in its entirety. And what is the result? First of all, learning the wrong lessons. And as a result of this mistake, making other mistakes, maybe even repeating the same ones that were already made a long time ago by our predecessors, thus showing that we haven't learned anything from history. So much for history being the teacher of life. In that case, no. In that case, absolutely not. So the important thing is, even in our videos, to understand, I know that some of you have sometimes been bothered that we covered certain topics, or that we did so simply by including all points of view. But that's how it is. That's what history is. You can't look with just one eye or listen with just one ear, hoping to see and hear only what pleases you. You must understand everything completely from start to finish. Then we will have learned something from history. Otherwise, we will keep making the same mistake over and over and over again. And that's the worst thing. Anyway, I thank you again because your email gave me the chance not to get something off my chest, but to give all of you a clear example of what our method is, mine and Giovanni's. Never discard anything. Try to understand everything in order to give you a complete picture of human history. Let's wrap up this episode with an email that I received from, if you don't sign your name, I can't read your email address because of privacy concerns. So once again, please remember to sign your name. Even a pseudonym is fine with me. But please sign your name because I can read your message. But then what happens? I can't say who sent it, because reading your email addresses would be a violation of privacy. So I would be penalized, and you might end up receiving unwanted emails from who knows who. So please do me this favor. Always sign your emails with your name or with a pseudonym. Sorry for the digression. As I was saying, let's finish with a short email that once again asks me for information about the upcoming events. So May 14th and 15th plus May 27th. There are 3 events, all of them training sessions, because they were organized within a new association of historians called Asostoria, which has just been established and brings together various enthusiasts and historians who explore different areas of human history, as well as different periods. And it aims to make a concrete contribution to the 80th anniversary celebrations of the birth of the Italian Republic. We're in 2026, 80 years after 1946. On June 23rd, the Republic versus Monarchy referendum, the victory of the Republic, and indeed the birth of the Italian Republic after the monarchical period. This conference will be held on the morning of May 14th at the Museum of the Battle of Vittorio Veneto. On May 15th, also in the morning, at the Santa Caterina Museum in Treviso, and on May 27th in Treviglio, in the province of Bergamo. Treviso and Treviglio sound very similar, so pay attention to the dates and locations. As I was saying, on May 27th in Treviglio, province of Bergamo, in a hall provided by the municipality. We still don't have the exact address, but I will let you know. It will be me, Luigi Fattorini, and Giovanni Cecchini. On some occasions, like the one in Vittorio Veneto, there will also be other speakers. All this is to best communicate the history of that epochal transition, of that transformation of our country, from a monarchy that had first emerged from the Risorgimento, and then from the liberal phase of the Belle Epoque, then fascism, the dictatorship, and finally the war, toward a different phase, that of the Republic. So we'll look at how all this began, the various positions, how it developed, and of course the final results. It will be a very valuable opportunity to dig, as we say, into history and better understand the present as well through it, precisely to get to know ourselves, to know who we are, who we Italians are, how we came to have this republic today, and why the republic. If you want to suggest dates, opportunities to meet through this kind of conference or other topics, go ahead and do it. I will bring them to the attention of both Asso Storia and the Institute for the History of the Italian Risorgimento, of which I am a member. That way, I can encourage these organizations to create more opportunities to meet and exchange views. Anyway, I wish you a good Sunday. I'm going to enjoy the birthday cake I was given, and I'll see you very soon with Dentro la Storia and its videos. By the way, I'll give you one last teaser. Next month, we'll start releasing on-location videos again. And this is one of them. No, I'm not telling you what it's about, but it will be very interesting and you'll definitely like it. So once again, happy Sunday, happy birthday to me, and I'll see you very soon here on Dentro la Storia, as always.